Welcome to the Parent Guide, helping your teen overcome pornography addiction. I am your host, Matt Wolfley, licensed psychotherapist specializing in adolescent addiction and family recovery. If you're a parent feeling worried, confused, or even a little overwhelmed by what your teen might be experiencing online, you are in the right place. This podcast is about giving you evidence-based insights, compassionate understanding, and real tools. Parents, today we're peeling back the curtain on a phenomena that is flying under the radar of most parents, but is fundamentally reshaping how teens experience sexual arousal. That is the concept of edging. And we aren't just talking about explicit websites anymore. We're talking about how social media algorithms have turned everyday scrolling into a high octane delivery system for addiction. In recent years, increasingly teens tell me that their porn use occurs via social media rather than seeking out actual porn sites. And this is one of the many reasons for why social media is so dangerous for teens. And it is for many the primary source of where they go to get sexually provocative media. And just to clarify, defining pornography, it's important to recognize that it is a mistake to just consider it full nudity or explicit sex. Really should be expanded to be considered any media that is being used for seeking sexual arousal. It's just too easy to justify or minimize by considering it's only porn if it's total nudity or sex. And along those lines, wanted to share some research that has identified, at least there's one key study that supports the idea that partially dressed or covered sexual imagery can actually be more arousing for teens than full nude images. It's a study in 2020 is published in the Computers and Human Behavior by Lei Han and colleagues. And it was a study involved heterosexual young adults viewing images of models in 4 different categories: fully dressed, nude with exposed genitals. Third is covered. So in other words, so organs obscured via either pixelation or mosaics, creating a quasi-nude appearance. And then underwear wearing. Participants reported significantly higher levels of sexual arousal to the covered pictures compared to the fully nude ones. And EEG measures further supported this, showing higher frontal P300 amplitudes for covered images, which the researchers linked to greater cognitive effort in mentally constructing the obscured areas as sexual, thereby enhancing sexual arousal through imagination and anticipation. So while this finding aligns with the psychological principle that partial coverage, or in a way teasing, can heighten enticement for leaving more to the imagination, broader research landscape is somewhat mixed. There are some earlier studies ranging as early as the 1970s up into the 2010s that found that full nudity elicited stronger arousal due to the direct access to sexual cues and physiological measures. But the reality is there's no universal consensus at this point, but it does seem like in recent years, with the advent of social media and more recently the algorithm that just continues to feed explicit, provocative images and videos into a teen's algorithm, that is where more and more are going to seek their sexual stimulation. And just back to this study real quick. The study provided empirical evidence for the specific scenario where obscured or partially dressed models prove more sexually enticing than complete nudity. And this was, again, heterosexual young adults, particularly highlighting stronger effects in the males. Parents, if your teen spends hours on their phone, gets snappy after putting it down, has trouble sleeping, or seems emotionally distant, this could be the hidden cycle at work. So by the end of this episode, you'll understand the neurobiology of the scroll, the trap of the algorithm, and some practical steps to interrupt the cycle. So we're taking our time today because your family's peace is worth the deep dive. So stick with me and let's get into it. So first things first, let's define edging, concept of edging in the social media era. So in traditional clinical treatment settings, edging is referred to the practice of maintaining sexual arousal for an extended period without reaching climax. So way of kind of hovering at the edge of the peak. And why is this so addictive? Well, it's because of the dopamine loop. So science note here, research shows that dopamine, brain's reward chemical, is actually released more during the anticipation of a reward than during the reward itself. So how this applies here, when a teen edges, they're keeping their brain in this state of high intensity craving. So they're marinating their prefrontal cortex in dopamine. And this makes the hit more powerful and then the subsequent crash much harder. So the concept of passive shift. So historically, porn addiction is required an intentional act. So in other words, going to a specific website. But today, edging is passive. So it happens on TikTok, happens on Instagram, happens in YouTube Shorts, and it's edging, but it's disguised as entertainment because it comes through the algorithm in social media. It starts with a thirst trap. So in other words, suggestive photos or videos, maybe hidden in a fitness reel or a dance trend, and the teen feels a spark of arousal, pulls back slightly to keep scrolling, but the brain is now primed. They're not looking for a finish line. They're looking for the next spark. This creates a chronic state of low-level arousal that sometimes can last for hours, wearing down their willpower along the way and distorting their view of healthy intimacy. So let me further refine this algorithm trap with some case scenarios. So people often ask, well, how does this happen to good kids? How do they end up here? Well, the answer is the feedback loop. Social media platforms use machine learning to maximize watch time. So, case study one, let's call it the fitness rabbit hole. Let's take Leo, we'll call him Leo, 15-year-old male, an athlete, starts by following some social media accounts for workout tips. And the algorithm notices that he lingers maybe 2 seconds longer on videos that feature attractive creators in tight gym wear. Looks something like this. Day one, his feed is 90% lifting tips. But then by day 7, the algorithm introduces lifestyle content from those same creators and often more suggestive, more provocative. Seven more days, get into day 14, and the social media feed is now softcore highlight reels. And Leo, he has not searched for anything bad, but his brain is now being fed a steady stream of sexual triggers, provocative media. And he hasn't even clicked. He hasn't clicked. He hasn't typed into Google. This has simply come to him through this algorithm. Case study number 2, call it the meme pipeline. Let's go with Sam, who's 16, follows a meme account looking for laughs. And these accounts often use provocative clickbait thumbnails to get views. And so every time Sam even pauses to read the caption on a suggestive image, the algorithm logs it as interest. So slowly his explore page shifts from funny cats to hyper-sexualized influencers. So the danger, because this content is mixed in with friends, posts, and music, the teen's shame alarm doesn't necessarily go off. They don't feel like they're watching porn, so they don't use the internal filters to stop, but neurologically, the effect is nearly identical. Let's talk about how to recognize some of the signs, or we could call it the digital hangover. How do you know if your teen is caught in the cycle? Well, it's rarely one big event. It's a cluster of behaviors that I like to call the digital hangover. So here are some of the markers there. The post-scroll irritability. Does your teen seem angry or prickly immediately after putting their phone away? Well, this is often a dopamine crash. Another sign would be, call it the vigilant phone grip. So do they tilt the screen away when you walk by? Even if they are not looking at hardcore content, they feel the edging is private and they get defensive. Cognitive fog. So research into problematic internet use shows that overstimulation of the reward system leads to decreased performance in executive function, that part of the brain that handles homework and chores. And then finally, and this one's a very obvious one, it's the sleep inversion. This is where a teen ends up staying up until 2 a.m. And it isn't just about talking to friends. It's often just one more loop driven by the algorithm's ability to keep the edging cycle alive. All right. Well, parents, if this sounds like your teen or if this is a phenomenon occurring in your home, don't panic. You actually do have more influence than you think. So I want to give you a roadmap here, give you some tools. So number one, let's call it the algorithm audit. And this is a little bit challenging, but this is something you need to do. You need to sit down with your team, not as a judge, but as a co-investigator. You're going to say something like, so I've been learning about how these apps try to trick our brains into staying on longer by showing us stuff that's super stimulating. Can we look at your explore page together? I want to see if the algorithm is pushing stuff on you that you don't even want there. And the goal is just simply to help them reset their feed by marking content as not interested. So you've got to empower them to take back control of their digital environment. And this is something you can't do. You're not just helpless to the algorithm, but you've got to go into the algorithm and you've got to train it. So next would be to externalize the enemy. So this would be clarifying the enemy is not your team. It's the multi-billion-dollar engineering design to hook them. So you're going to explain, look, your brain is still developing its brakes. These apps are all gas pedal. It's not a character flaw that you're hooked. It's a design feature of the app. So you're going to line with your team against the problem, externalize the enemy. Next, this will be what I call the dopamine fast and replacement. You can't just take away the phone. You've got to fill the vacuum. And this is where things like physicality come in, intense exercise, workouts, weight training, running, biking, any type of intense exercise. And even as crazy as it sounds, cold showers, cold plunging can help reset the nervous system after a dopamine spike. Along with that, cannot overemphasize enough the importance of connection, which is replacing the digital intimacy of edging with real world connection. Things like family game nights, hiking, working on a hobby together, having a team, join a team, a group, a club, having face-to-face social connection with other people. So, and that is where we are going to get the opportunity for a dopamine fast, being able to disrupt those constant dopamine hits. And then parents, when to seek professional support. Sometimes the cycle is too deeply entrenched for just simple house rules to fix the issue. So this is where things like Recovery Toolbox for teens comes in at Therapy Associates. We use the Recovery Toolbox for teens. This is a trio of workbooks, includes the Breaking Free workbook, parent guide, and the 101 tips for quitting porn. And it gives you, as parents, a common language to talk about these issues without the heat of an argument. And you can find the Recovery Toolbox for Teens. It's in the bookstore at therapyassociates.net. It's the blue version, not the brown version. And you can use this curriculum as a parent-led intervention. You can use it in a professional setting with a therapist if your teen is in therapy. It's the curriculum we use here at Therapy Associates in our clinic and in our Star Guides program. And then parents, if you are in need of a more intensive intervention, if you see signs of serious depression or anxiety or self-harm, or if sexual behaviors are becoming high risk, you may need a higher level of care to disrupt those patterns. And then this is where Star Guides, wilderness therapy comes in. Our Star Guides program, world-class program specifically designed for adolescent males struggling with technology and sexual compulsivity, provides a total unplug, a total detox necessary, let the brain's neurochemistry return to baseline. So to learn more about Star Guides, visit starguides.net. So parents, understanding edging is a game changer. It moves the conversation from, well, why are you looking at bad things, to let's help your brain get out of this loop. And your calm awareness and firm boundaries are the greatest gifts that you can give your teen. You're not policing them. You're shepherding them through this digital wilderness that they weren't meant to navigate alone. So parents, know you're doing the hard work. Your teen is lucky to have you. I want to introduce a guide that I'll put it in the show notes here, the algorithm reset, which can provide you a step-by-step guide on how to do this. So it's going to provide different phases of how to approach this. Phase 1, the digital landscape talk. So this is before you even touch the phone. You set the stage with the no shame conversation. Talk about the script. So parents, let's talk about what we call the algorithm reset. And this will be a guide to you and your team collaboratively working to reset the algorithm. So the script you're going to use is something to the effect of, Look, I learned that these apps are literally engineered by teams of scientists to keep us scrolling. And they use variable rewards, kind of like a slot machine, to keep dopamine spiking. And you can even say, as a parent, I've noticed that my own feed has been getting weird lately. Can we look at yours together to see if the algorithm is trying to profile you? So, and remember, the goal here is to shift the focus from bad content to predatory engineering. So that'd be step one is setting up the stage through that conversation. Step two is going to be what we call the audit. This is going to be hands-on using the phone. So open up the primary social media app, TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube, and together you're going to go to the Explore or the For You page and perform a 30-second scroll together. And you're just simply going to look for content that matches their actual hobbies, or content that is slightly more provocative, or the hypersexualized or edging content, which is what we're most concerned with, which is designed to trigger a linger or a pause. Again, your teen does not even have to click. It's just simply pausing or lingering that triggers the algorithm. If you find hypersexualized content, then you're going to want to implement the reset action. On every suggested video or provocative video, you're going to do the long press and select not interested. So you're going to go through and work that algorithm, and over a period of several minutes, every suggestive provocative video, select not interested. So that's step one. Step two, you're going to clear the cache. Go to settings, into activity and search history, and clear it. So this blinds the algorithm to what the past lingers have been. Clear that cache out. And step three, keyword filtering. So in either TikTok or the Instagram settings, you can go to and add filtered keywords for terms common in thirst traps or suggestive content. So, all right. And then the third part of this would be explaining what we call the cool down period. So when the teen brain gets into that edging loop, the prefrontal cortex, the logic center, goes offline. And so what we're looking for here would just simply be an agreement, maybe like a 15-minute buffer, which means that if the feed starts to get weird or suggestive, the teen puts the phone in a common charging station for 15 minutes. Why is it? Well, it allows for the dopamine spike to level off so that they can regain impulse control. And then finally, so I've talked about in multiple episodes, the sunset rule is part of sleep hygiene, which is just simply no scrolling at least 60 minutes before bed. Because we know the blue light combined with dopamine spikes is going to lead to zero REM sleep. So, and that's where, I'm a big advocate of the 9 p.m. All the devices go into the charging station in the kitchen, in the office, so that there's no chance that that's going to happen. So, all right. And then next phase would be tracking the digital hangover. Give your teen checklists, self-monitor, and if they check more than 2 of these, it's time for a 2-hour digital fast. So that checklist would be, call it the snap, which would be feeling annoyed or angry the moment they lock their screen. Next would be the fog. I have no idea what I just watched for the last 30 minutes. The lean, which would be I found myself physically hiding my screen from people in the room. And then the thirst would be I feel like I need just one more video to feel satisfied. So if they're checking 2 or more on that list, then it's time for a 2-hour digital fast. And then finally, the last step, healthy dopamine replacement. So this would mean that the brain needs to log a win to replace the digital hits. So it'd be one of these things that you would want your teen to do. So something high intensity, whether it be 20 push-ups, 20 jumping jacks, a cold shower, something to shock the nervous system out of the loop, something tactile, so in other words, playing an instrument, drawing or cooking, which engages fine motor skills, and then social, which would be something as simple as a 5-minute conversation with an actual human being without a screen in sight. So I'm going to put a form up that gives these steps that I think can be helpful, which again, we'll call it the algorithm reset. So parents, thanks for tuning in. I know how valuable your time is. You're doing the hard work. Your teen is lucky to have you. Check the show notes for resources, the Recovery Toolbox for teens, for star guides. Look for this algorithm reset guide. And until next time, take care of yourself and your family.